some things we could talk about. Chop it up, chop it, chop it, chop it up, chop it up, chop it. We got some things we could talk about.
You are now tuned in to the Chop Shop with your host, Pastor Marvin McKinstry Jr. Let's chop it up.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining the Chop Shop. I'm your host, Pastor Marvin McKinstry Jr., and I'm excited that God continues to give us the privilege to bring you information that matters to the city of Baltimore, its communities, and the kingdom of God. We got a hot one set up for you tonight, y'all. It's a lot going on in the news, a lot of it surrounding policing, police reform, the legislative session, and we got the guy with us tonight. Mr. Ray Kelly will be here to unpack all of it. Police Accountability Board, y'all, we diving in with both feet, and we are going to come on the second half of the show for our faith segment, talking to the one and only, the Dr. Shavona Whitehead, author of The Cutting That Made Me Grow. I think that's the right name. She is an amazing woman of God and author, and she's going to be with us tonight, and we're going to be talking about the need to have a focus on healing for all of the things that be demanding time for your life, time away from your life, time out of your life, need you to be whole anyway. So you need to have a focus on healing. But before we get to any of that, I got to welcome and thank my right hand and my left hand, my main man, Mr. Shaka Pitts, on the ones and twos, making the magic happen. Always Techniques 1200s, because anything else is uncivilized. Shock, what it do, man?
Hey, Marv, how you doing, good brother?
Man, listen, I'm Baltimore. Isabel Cummings. Y'all better pay more attention to that office. So now, in the news, corruption again. All right, a construction company who was just awarded a new contract through the Board of Estimates last week after being cited by Isabel Cummings' office for literally withholding and falsifying almost $500,000 in business that was supposed to go to minority businesses and women businesses. You know, in Baltimore, when you get contracts over a certain amount of money, there's an MBE mandate and there's a woman WBE mandate. And literally, this business falsified. The report was turned in and they got awarded again. Talk to me, Shaka Pitts.
We own the city part 2, Marv.
Hey, you know what? The crazy thing about that, they got to the point in the wire where they focused on the politics. Y'all listen, we own the city part 2 is coming. They gonna be looking at everything downtown. Man, it's crazy.
Man, listen, Marv, listen, it's you can't make it up, man. But the funny thing is, like, you can, because you see the books, you see the stories, the fictional stories and all the Hollywood, and it's real, Marv. It's right here.
The thing that's killing me in our community is, if we like you, we don't hold you accountable.
Nah, man.
Sonia Santelises. Think about the county. The residents of the county hold one protest. The dude say, I ain't going after another contract, right? Now, I think we might have talked about this a week ago. The police officer who is the coach over Dunbar, $200,000 in overtime. They got this dude driving the boat when he's supposed to be at work.
Listen, man. It's accountability must be had. Listen, I love my kids and I keep them accountable.
That's what real love do.
You know,
that's what real love don't rubber stamp nothing, man. And this is the crazy thing, because somebody asked me about Westmore. I'm gonna tell you this: a lot of people in Baltimore are gonna be upset if they think Westmore is going to align itself with Baltimore politics. He got national aspirations, and it's too much craziness that go on in this city. Westmore, y'all hearing it from me. By the end of his first term, Baltimore going to talk about how much they've been left out and all of that, because the dude got bigger plans. And I'm just saying, I don't believe he's going to align with that. With that being said, let's get to these church announcements, brought to you by always the men of the We Are Us movement. They sponsor our church announcements, and we always kick it off with the Stop the Beef hotline. Call 443-431-3705 or 443-522-7848 if you or somebody that you know is involved in a situation that could cause somebody some harm. Listen, y'all, we are doing this work, have been doing this work. It's underground work. We don't put it out there a lot, but we need you to make that call. A man on the other end is going to answer the phone, and we're going to get involved and do what we do without no police involvement. Walking hand in hand with it is the Baltimore Peace Agreement. Second, going into the third year of making the rounds. of Baltimore City, making sure that peace abides. It's a 10-point plan that's been developed by OGs, people that's still in the street, people behind the walls, and every young man that's signing off on it has been keeping their word that peace will abide in the city of Baltimore. All right. Y'all know today we had a hot one on the Employ Baltimore show, a new employer in Baltimore that's doing great work. I want y'all to make sure that y'all tune in on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Yours truly is the host, the Employ Baltimore show. We sit down and we talk to businesses that have available opportunities. So make sure that you tune in. We got a big hiring event coming. Okay, Sunday, we got a big hiring event coming up at the Westside Youth Opportunity Center, where my staff person down there, Cortez Cannon, is bringing the jobs. Y'all listen, it's a lot of opportunities: unarmed security, sanitation, housekeeping, CDL, forklift, warehouse, cooks, servers, cashiers. Just make sure on February the 8th that you make your way down to 1510 West Lafayette Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland, 21227 at the esteemed West Baltimore Youth Opportunity Center, which is facilitated by the Mayor's Office of Employment Development. My man Tavon doing great things down there. Get in the building. Black History Month, y'all. Black History Month. It's Black History Month at Victory House Worship Center. Y'all want to make sure y'all in the building because the February sermon series is going to be I Am Black History. I need y'all to be in the building. This month in Christ is going to be about self-awareness and the awakening that we need, because I'm seeing Christ do great things in our ministry and in our community. So make sure if you don't have a place to be, join us at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning at 1063 West Fair Street. We're in the Lord's Sanctuary, or you can catch us on Facebook Live, Zoom, and YouTube Live. We love you. Be there. This afternoon, I'm going out for my man. Y'all have seen him on the show. I don't even preach out for a lot of people, Shock. I just don't. But this is my guy. I call him the Bishop. Bishop-elect John D. Watts is his birthday service. Listen, y'all, I don't even know what you're supposed to preach for a birthday service, but I'm going to say whatever God says. So if you want to join us February the 5th this weekend, 4 p.m., we are going to be in Brooklyn, 504 Annabelle Avenue. Make sure you pull up on us, man. You're going to definitely hear a word from the Lord. We are bringing back the choir. That's right, bringing back the choir. First Sundays at VHWC. We are going to be in the building, and we're going to be singing choir songs. You do not have to be a member of our church or any church. If you want to come, be with us tomorrow night on Friday, February the 3rd, for rehearsal at 7 p.m. Come in. We're going to learn these songs Sunday morning. We're going to bring back the choir as a part of our communion service. We're going to be doing this monthly. So make sure that if you want to come and be a part of the choir, that you show up so we can show out for Jesus. I almost forgot to say for Jesus. Y'all, check out this. My man Tavon Mason put this together for me. The Bible is Black History, representing Black History Month, y'all. I live a Black History life. My self-awareness, who I am and where we've been, so we can get to where we're going, is a major part of who I am and who we are. And I got a man who is Black History in Baltimore, not just in the making. He's made Black history, and he continues to make Black history. He is the executive director of the Citizens Policing Project. He's my big brother. He was the chair of the Community Oversight Task Force. He is the person that wrote the original report before DOJ report about Baltimore policing and its corruption. And he is one of those guys that's a big part of legislation and policy that's happening down at the state. We're talking about the one and only former director of No Boundaries Coalition, my man, Mr. Ray Kelly. What's up, Ray? You got unmute, Ray.
What's going on, little bro?
Man, I'm excited. Listen, you know what's going on with me. I'm excited to have you here because tonight there's a whole bunch that's going on in and around the topics that you have. One of the areas that you have a level of expertise, and I want to talk about all of it. But before I get to that, tell the people a little bit more about yourself. I tried to run your whole resume because I want to get to the conversation. But tell the people a little bit more about yourself.
I'll keep it short. I'm a West Baltimore born and bred police reform, public safety advocate. I've worked on national levels to influence police reform by elevating the voice of the people in our community, which is, for me, Santana Winchester.
That's what's up. That's what's up. You know, I'm right down the block in Lexington Terrace. We them guys that keep it real for the hoods that spawned us. Man, listen, there's a whole bunch going on, a whole bunch going on. And you said something while we was pre-gaming and getting ready for the show tonight. So I kind of want to start there. I have not looked at any video or read anything. I don't need to see a video to know that police, regardless of their race, will hate and kill black men. I don't need to see that. So I'm not going to re-traumatize myself. But talk to us. How is what's happening right now with Tyree Nichols impacting the work that has been done and continues to be done around police reform in Baltimore and across the country?
So I feel you. I haven't watched the video either. I feel like I was mobilized 13 years ago for real, where I don't need another video, another mother's heartbreak to kind of get me up in arms, because I know this work is happening every day. And this whole murder of Tyree Nichols, once again, reminds us as advocates of the resilience that this country has of actually fighting against us having equal treatment under the law. And we know that we fight this in our cities and on the state level. And the best we've gotten in over 100 years is consent decrees and federal oversight, where what we need is the federal government to move on laws. And there is no elected official in office nationally or locally that didn't run on a police reform campaign in 2020. And once again, they kicking the can to the next campaign so they can try to run on it again. And we don't see no change. We keep seeing the same things happening over and over, and it's just frustrating.
It's beyond frustrating to me, man, because this show was literally birthed, and you were one of the original guests when we decided to sit down to try to figure out how 5 years after Freddie Gray, we had George Floyd, and now 3 years after George Floyd, we find ourselves in a similar situation with Tyree Nichols. What is it that legislation? Because we see them putting things in place that's supposed to make change at the policy level, but it's not making its way ultimately to the cultural level, because the culture policing is still one that's the Western District way, as they used to call it.
Hmm. And that's what it is. We can put whatever we want on paper, but that doesn't necessarily translate into implementation of what's written on those papers. And that's the issue, is the culture of policing still remains the same. The culture was built on, for lack of a better term, controlling black people. And that continues to be the culture of policing, because the influence is still the same on what directives the police get, which is from the affluent, capitalistic people that profit off the city, and not necessarily the people that have to engage with this police department.
You know, the interesting thing about it is, bro, when I called you to have this show was booked long before there was a Tyree Nichols story in the media. It's just interesting that God would align things to have you, our police reform guru, the one who taught me, on the show while we're in the midst of this controversy and this culture. Give me just where you are from your personal perspective, that we have another national story involving police and a black man, because what they're trying to do is redirect towards the idea that these police are black. But we've known that the culture of policing, that it's about blue versus black. It's not particularly about what color the police officer is.
Well, municipal police departments, for one, were created to enforce laws that were targeting poverty. So the people that funded these police since the beginning of policing were the people that had property, and they wanted to protect their property from the people they had been oppressing, mainly black people. You know, we ain't have nothing, So we got to scrap and steal and do whatever we got to do to survive. So I feel personally, nationwide, not just in Baltimore, with an emphasis on Baltimore, but we can't keep talking about enforcing these crimes that are founded in poverty without actually providing those resources and opportunities needed to overcome poverty. And we didn't create this situation. So they don't like to talk about reparations, but the sense of the matter is instead of moving us forward into a place of reconciliation, we continue to kind of have the police flex to say, look, y'all better do what we say and act right, or this what's going to happen. I mean, it's like exhausting. Wednesday, right before they released the video, we were in D.C. with the National Council on Police Reform and Race, presenting recommendations again to the national level because I mean, people been doing this police reform work forever. I've been doing it for 15 years. We know that the federal government has to do more than say we watching y'all. They got to actually enact procedural protocols for national policing in this country, so there will be consequences. Police culture ain't going to change if ain't no fear of consequence. Police themselves.
You just gave me the perfect segue because I wanted to ask you, with the president of these United States coming on tonight to have his State of the Union address, right while we're in the midst of the media push surrounding this tragedy, this murder, this travesty of Tyree Nichols. Should we expect to hear anything out of him with his history concerning this? And should we expect anything out of his administration that's going to have any real teeth to make change in policing?
We're gonna definitely hear something from him because that for real was the base of his campaign. It's his chance to say that the Republicans didn't push for the George Floyd, blah blah blah. Is that going to push the pendulum forward as far as the Senate the House actually moving forward on the George Floyd Act and pushing those types of reforms? We don't know. It's like a political game. I think that's the problem with the progression and all this police reform avenue is the politics corrupting it all and the perpetual campaigns that we got going on where he got 3 more years, get out that campaign trail. Same thing locally. We just had the election. Let's get some work done before we start bickering and campaigning against each other and all that foolishness. Get some stuff done. We still fighting to get local control done.
You on live with the Chop Shop. We here with our police reform expert and one of the original first episode guests of the Chop Shop, Mr. Ray Kelly. Ray, I want to shift a little bit because we have heard all this week about the Police Accountability Board here in Baltimore. Tell the people a little bit about the background, how we got to the point where we have a Police Accountability Board and what we should expect out of it.
So the police accountability boards were birthed from the repeal of the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights and the bill that House Speaker Adrian Williams introduced in 2021. When that passed, the state mandated that every jurisdiction create these police accountability boards. Every jurisdiction had the opportunity to build their own makeup, and we were very active in that process. And I felt like we have the structure for a strong police accountability board. I always have my reservations because essentially these boards are just review boards, so they really look at what the police give them as far as the investigation goes, but it's a step forward. We actually have or will have an administrative charging committee that can recommend punishment and punitive consequences for police misconduct. So structurally, it's set up to be representative of the whole city. I don't really know a lot of the people that are on the board. I know Josh Harris is on the board, a couple other people, names I recognize, but I don't know. I don't want to pass judgment on them yet. They got a heavy mandate and a backlog, so let's give them a chance to work before I tear them apart.
Well, one of the things about that work is making sure that there's the level of independence necessary that they can do the work without having to worry about, some level of intervention that would prevent them from being able to do the work truly and purely. Does this have the level of independence as a board? We were talking a little earlier about Isabel Cumming and her office and how they can literally go and get all the way into the weeds because of that independence. Is that independence separate from the entities and the powers that be in place so that they can do the work free of worrying about backlash from BPD or City Hall?
I don't think it is. I'll be honest. So I do know that one thing we lost in the transition to a police accountability board from the civilian review board we had in the past was they had the ability to do an independent investigation. Like I said, we're now reliant on information that the police department share. If this is going to be overseen by the state, then it's just going to be the state police. It's not like we can bring in our own investigators, and the actual members of the board can only review what they're given.
Wow. You on live with the Chop Shop. I'm your host, Pastor Marvin McKinstry Jr. We're sitting down with the guru himself, Mr. Ray Kelly, talking Tyree Nichols and police reform. Ray, as we get ready to come down the stretch, where are we in Maryland's own, Baltimore City's own implementation of some of the things that we got in legislation in the legislative session? I believe it was 2 years ago now that have some of those rollouts. What can we expect to roll out this year? And is there anything that we need to be paying attention to in this particular session concerning police reform?
So I think we got to all pay attention to local control. So, as you know, we had local control as a ballot question last year. So it went to the state legislature and they decided that the people of Baltimore should be the ones to vote on this. And 82% of the people in Baltimore said we should have local control. But now we got our local Baltimore delegation and local officials dragging their feet, where in essence we need some language changed in the Baltimore charter to actually enact the will of the people. And they dragging their feet and setting fire under me, where we got to advocate for this. The people demanded this, and we got to make sure that our representatives are acting on the will of the people that actually elected their behinds into office.
Who is specifically the body that is in charge of making those changes? Is it the Baltimore City Council or is it the Baltimore delegation of the Senate? I mean
So,
the state legislature.
so I think it has to go through the state legislature. So we are going to introduce a bill ourselves to do it. We going around the local legislation because it's like it seems to not be happening. And I'm on the local control advisory board, and we ain't met since before the election. So we got to actually act with the urgency that the people demand when they give us 82% of the vote on a initiative. So we're right now working with state legislatures to introduce the bill, and we've met with the mayor. We meet the advisory board actually meets tomorrow, and it's a public meeting. I'll make sure I share the link. We the people gotta put fire under their asses because I mean, it's not really affecting them like it's affecting us.
Man, listen, I want to thank you for being with us, Mr. Ray Kelly, man. Before we go, give us whatever your final thoughts are, whatever directives you want to give to the people of the city of Baltimore, because these are critical times. And I think when we don't have a hot button topic in the news, we kind of fall asleep. And we're already seeing people don't realize that this is campaign season. You're about to see people declaring, signs
I
going
agree.
up. Who and what do we need to know in order to be empowered to bring real change in Baltimore?
I think the key right now is to understand that just here in Baltimore 8 years ago, we was going through this. We went through it again nationwide in 2020, where this is perpetual. We need people to be engaged in the fight that's happening right here in their cities, and that's how we do a unified national push for change. But we got to actually get off of that social media, stop yelling at people, and bring ourselves in the room and just overwhelm the whole process so they can know that this is what we ask for, this is what we demand. If y'all want to represent us, y'all got to do that. We got to get involved.
Well, listen, brother, anything that you have that you want to make sure that we're putting up here on the Chop Shop during the church announcements, or if I need to speak on a segment, make sure you email it to me. And weekly, if we got to be reminding the people of what's important and what matters, we will do it here. This is an independent platform. We don't endorse nobody. We
Like I
endorse
said, I don't
truth.
have no allies in this game.
Exactly. We endorse truth and education. I want you to know you are my ally and
I
you are my
appreciate you,
brother.
big
And I
brother.
so appreciate who you are. You have educated me so much on these matters. And I still to this day love to sit and just hear your voice and your perspective because you get down into the weeds, but you bring it up practical for everybody to be able to understand. Everybody put some hearts and some likes up, thumbs up, and all that for my big bro, Mr. Ray Kelly. Ray, thank you for being with us today.
Appreciate you for having me, bro.
Man, listen, you're a regular here. You're going to keep coming back.
Right. Most definitely.
All right, everybody. Listen, I told Ray earlier we could have carried this thing on, especially with what's going on in the news concerning Tyree Nichols and the things that are really hot button topics surrounding Baltimore. But we got another extra special guest that's going to be with us in a minute. The first time she came on, I had to repent because the show was around for 2 years before we brought her on, and she actually came on here and blazed the airways, y'all. And I was excited to talk to her about this because I think this is one of the things that we're kind of kindred spirits on that need that we take the necessary time to heal and not sit in a space where we are devoid of healing, where we've gone through some things and we've been subject to some things, and even being able to look back over our lives at the things that we've gone through and we've come from, specifically in how they shape us in a positive way, but definitely how they can hold us back in a negative way. And I'm excited to have her voice on this topic tonight. She's here with us. She is a published author 2 times over now. I got to actually be a part of the work for her doctoral dissertation and watch her become Dr. Shavona Whitehead. Dr. Vaughn, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm excited that you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So what spawned this conversation is and I see my soon to be co-host is with us tonight. I gotta shout her out, y'all. I got so consumed. I had to get my mother from the hospital, Chelsea the Cat Woman. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I was getting my mom from the hospital and wasn't able to get all of the information to her. She's supposed to be on here with us tonight. We got a session, a segment that's going to be coming on the Chop Shop where she's going to be talking for a few minutes. And it's Chelsea the Kept Woman, and she's just going to give us what she got to give us to help us be kept. So, Chelsea, definitely shout out to you. Looking forward to next week when we ain't going to have these same issues and we're going to get you on. All right, Dr. Vaughn.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Vaughn, I'm just excited about having you here. So, kind of the background and context for this conversation, and many of the conversations that we have, especially those that are on the spiritual side, have everything to do with the place that I'm living in, and want to kind of bring that information through the voices that are helping me and blessing me. And you already know we just us, that we gonna always be us, whatever us is. Amen. Hallelujah. But losing my grandmother propelled me into a place where I knew that I was going to need some healing from her loss. But because God is who he is, God didn't say just healing or grief from healing from you. No, God said it's time to do the real work. And I'm talking about the real work. And what I've literally had to do is to put a certain measure of focus on myself, that is not my custom. It's not my custom. I am so accustomed to providing for, caring for, being available for everybody else that to a degree I felt a little selfish in the space where, and I'm talking, self-care is one of our new buzzwords. I'm talking beyond self-care.
Mhm.
I'm talking beyond just self-care. I'm talking really doing the work to dig down deep and to be healed. Your book, The Cutting That Made Me Whole, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I thought I messed it up.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
You got it right this time.
The Cutting That Made Me Whole. It's a blessing. And when as I was matriculating through the book, I'm like, I gotta get Dr. Vaughn on because this is the kind of thing. It's a situation. The cutting that made me pursue wholeness, if I had to put it in my own words, was losing my grandmother. But Dr. Vaughn, talk to us real quick about, well, not real quick, but talk to us about the importance of the focus that we need to have on our healing and wholeness.
So the first thing I would say is first you got to realize that it's the perception of you that keeps you from your healing.
My God.
It is the very perception of you. And most of the time that perception comes from situations or circumstances. And so we stay bound, we stay broken, we stay in these states scared to embrace it because we up here have a perception of us, because we know everything about us. And so sometimes the journey to healing is difficult because now you have to shift your perception of you. Now you got to think yourself worthy of healing. Now you got to feel like you deserve this healing, because too often the reason why we're broken is because we thought we didn't deserve wholeness in the first place. So when we had the first lashing, we got stuck. Had the second lashing, we got stuck. We made the third fail and we got stuck. And because we developed this perception of us through all of that, through the grief, through the abandonment, through the pain, through betrayal, through self-sabotage, through self-doubt, through fear, through all of that, we get into a box. And it's our perception of us that actually hinders us from actually allowing the cutting to take place in the first place. We don't even think the cutting actually is going to help us. But it's once you actually shift your perspective of you, then you can lean in, start embracing those cutting things, because my perspective has changed. Now I don't think God's angry with me because he's allowed some cutting. Now I look at the cutting, that this cutting now is actually for my benefit, for multiple things, whether it's cutting away something infectious, whether it's cutting away something that I got myself into, or whether it's cutting to make me better. Because you do know sometimes you got to cut away the dead stuff to make something better. It's not even that, I got in a bad situation. It's called pruning. You just cut all the stuff away
So something else can live.
So that you continue to live. And so when we talk about the cutting that made me whole, a lot of times when people ask me, they be like, first of all, they like, that's an oxymoron. Well, I beg to differ. When I thought it was too, when God gave it to me, but I had to be cut so that God could reveal me to me. I had to be cut so God could reveal me to me. Because the me I was living wasn't me. I was living somebody else many years, because I was trying to make sure that I stayed in with the confines of what people thought I was supposed to do, or what people would accept me as, or the comfortability of I didn't want to be judged by anybody. So I lived in this box. But sometimes you got to allow the box to be shattered so you can be revealed to you. Then you can go through the healing process. But until you're ready to face you, the good and the bad, sometimes your healing journey going to be stunted.
You on Live with the Chop Shop. We talking to the author of The Cutting That Made Me Whole, Dr. Shavona Whitehead. Dr. Vaughn, you were there when I stood flat-footed in my brother Andre Nance's pulpit the day after eulogizing my grandmother. And God blessed me to be able to deliver a mighty word. And literally, my mind frame going into it was, so assignment driven and so duty driven. But God literally had to push me because even in the word, I spoke to myself and something broke. That it's no more faking it till you make it. It's no more praising your way through. It's no more none of that. There's a real need to sit still and heal. How much of the assignment can prohibit us from being able to really engage and indulge in the healing process?
Sometimes you'll put the assignment before the person. And I say that in an aspect, I share the same sentiment. My grandparents, I've lost both of them that have raised me. And sometimes the assignment, you'll forget that you are the daughter. You'll forget that you're the son. You'll forget that you're the nephew, the grandson. You'll forget that you're the person, and you'll drive the assignment not realizing that you are a trichotomy being. If you starve that person of you eventually is going to knock everything out of sync. So you can drive the assignment, drive the spirit, drive it and drive it. But if you never deal with the person of you, it's going to pull everything back down because it's going to show up at the wrong time. It's going to explode, or it's going to impede. It's going to implode. It's going to do something if you don't deal with the person. And that's why even that particular Sunday, I looked at you, I said, be the son. Be the son. Yesterday, you were the pastor. Today, be the son. And the reason why I said that is yesterday, your assignment was to not only, when you eulogized her, your assignment was to bring you through and your church. So you stood as the pastor because she was the mother of the church. You had to bring your church through. You had to eulogize the mother of your church. So you had to stand as the pastor. But on that next day, now as you're standing, now you got to break through as the son. You got to break through as the seed that is now facing a new norm that has shattered him.
My God.
And sometimes we don't want to be real with the fact that whatever this new norm is has completely shattered. It didn't knock the wind out of me. It didn't just make me stumble. It has literally shattered me. And while my spirit is strong, my body and this person and my emotions are so out of whack. And if I don't deal with it, people who don't deal with it, you turn to stuff, you turn to this, you turn to that because you're trying to supplement. And the more you supplement, the deeper wounded you now are wounding you. So you already got the wound of the it. And now because you're supplementing, now you're wounding you on top of the it. Whatever your it is, because your it don't necessarily have to be grief. It could be anything. It could have been a betrayal. It could have been a mishandlement or something. Your it, whatever your it is. I've had multiple its. And when I didn't deal with the it, I started actually wounding myself on top of the it. So you got to deal with the person. And that's why that Sunday, all I could say was, be the son. I got you. I understand what you had to do yesterday, but today, all that don't matter. Just push through as the son. And when you push through as the son, then that's when God can start the healing, because it's the person that need to be healed. Your spirit ain't wounded. Your spirit not wounded. You're weak. He's made strong. Your spirit ain't wounded. It's the person that's now shattered. So if you don't deal with the person, you get stuck.
The level of vulnerability that I've had to become comfortable in is different than any amount of vulnerability. Every title, position, or anything that I've been given, even those things in ministry, have become another layer, another mask for me to be able to try to conceal what really need to be healed until God broke all of it with the transition of my grandmother. Those of us who are used to having to be the champion for everybody else, we don't really understand vulnerability. And God helped me to see that vulnerability is not weakness, it's access. Talk to us about the necessity of being able to understand vulnerability, that his strength is made perfect in our weakness. How important is it that we embrace the concept of vulnerability in a healthy manner so that we can get to this healing?
First, let me say this. What would happen if you show the people who are wounded that you got the same scars? What would happen if you showed the people, you're ministering to them, what will really happen if we as leaders actually showed the people that we had the same scars? Would they actually believe that our God can do the same for them if we stop acting like we don't have any scars? So when we talk about being vulnerable, I now got to realize that my vulnerability may save somebody. My vulnerability, while I am being healed, my healing journey will heal somebody. My vulnerability will make somebody else say, well, maybe I can too. But we have created this this facade, and we've created this this mantra that once you are in God and you over here, that you always speaking in tongues, you always praying, you always shouting, you always giving God glory, you ain't never struggling. This is the pictures that we ain't never struggling, we ain't never going through, we ain't never doubting, we ain't never fearful, we ain't never. And so then we're preaching to a people that's dealing with the fact they don't know how they're going to pay their bills. We're dealing with the people who are facing grief on top of grief, on top of grief, on top of grief. We're facing people that are being overlooked on positions and thinking that they're worthless. We're facing women who have low self-esteem issues because somebody has placed false narratives on them. We're facing men who were told that, you know, you're soft if you cry. So they've been struggling with stuff for years. We're facing these type of people, and if we don't show them our vulnerability, if we don't show them our scars, what ministry are we really doing?
My God.
What are we really doing? That's why my mantra to my book says my journey is somebody's freedom. I am no longer bound to my journey because God has already taken the sting out of it. When I healed from it and he made me whole. So there's the difference between being healed and whole. When he made me whole from it, I no longer feel the sting of it. So I can tell you my story until Jesus comes. It no longer bothers me and I'm no longer ashamed of it. And so now I believe in telling I'll tell you where I messed up. Yeah, I messed up. Yeah, I almost tried to end it all for myself. Yeah, I messed up for myself. I did it. I made the choices. I own it. And so we have to show our vulnerability and realize that's really where our strengths come from.
Chelsea, the Cap Woman, is trying to book you on the show, and we ain't even finished this interview. You on Live with the Chop Shop. We come to you every Thursday at 6 p.m. Healing, you made the designation between healing and wholeness. And I always like to look at the penicillin process and how my doctor always told me, don't stop taking it just because you feel a little better. In the process, you must complete the prescription. One of the things about this time of healing in my life is that it's invoked deliverance. And I'm talking about, I'll tell you the testimony after the show, but it's invoked a different level of deliverance. Mm-hmm. And watch this, people, a different level of discipline. How important is it that we don't stop taking the prescription just because we feel a little better, but we stay the course so we can get to wholeness?
So that place called in between is where most of us get stuck, because healing means that I have overcome, I've survived that situation. Healing means that it is done. It is over. It is sealed. But wholeness takes the sting, the suffering, and the pain out of the it. So in order for you to get to that place of wholeness where you're not sucked back, you got to go through that in between. And most of us don't like that space called in between. The minute that you like, all right, I'm smiling, I'm good, you know, you think you got your little swag back, you all of a sudden like, you know what, I'm good, I don't need to go the rest of the way. But that's why many of us, we think we are healed and we get sucked back. The minute that we actually feel good, I'm glad that you use those words, the minute that we feel good, we stop doing the work. The minute that we feel good, we stop digging deep. And some of us, if the truth be told, the healing that we need ain't surface. The healing that we need, you got to dig deep. You got to take that chisel and you got to start digging real deep. So guess what? It's not going to be the first day you start smiling, you got to stop working. Because some of this stuff is layer after layer after layer. I teach some of my mentees, sometime when you in the healing, that place called in between, you got to go back and talk to that 13-year-old you. I know you may be 50 now, but that 13-year-old you is the one that's plaguing you. I know you may be 50 now, but you got to talk to that 27-year-old you. I know you may be 50, but you got to go talk to that 34-year-old you. Sometimes that in between makes you deal with the different phases of you where you got wounded. And some of us don't want to go back to where we got wounded. But the medicine, the penicillin, ain't going to work till you put it on where the wound was. The penicillin ain't going to work. If you take the penicillin and you go and rub it on your foot and you don't put it in the inside, what is it going to do? It's not going to do anything because you use it like lotion and you put it on your foot. The penicillin works on the inside. So you got to put the penicillin where the issue is. Our issue ain't on the outside. Our issue is in there. So if you don't put the penicillin where it is and then let it work all of the areas, because the reason why you got to take penicillin, because the whole length of time is because it has to go and clean out the whole body system. So if you take the penicillin and you only let it clean out your chest, but the issue really in your leg.
My God. You on Live with the Chop Shop, y'all. We come to you every Thursday at 6 p.m. We are talking to the author, the prolific author of The Cutting That Made Me Whole, Dr. Vaughn. Dr. Vaughn, when we start talking about this wholeness process, I'll be 100% transparent. I had some fears. Those fears weren't external. Those fears were internal because there had been time when just on my own willpower and desire, I tried to do the work of deliverance and discipline. And it fell short because I now know that there was something else required in the deliverance place in order for the discipline place to become a reality. Talk to us about how we deal with and confront those fears when we're looking at moving from where we are to where we need to be, and trusting God to bring us in and through that process.
Well, the first thing is you have to change your perspective. The reason why fear overtakes a lot of us is because our perspective on whatever that fear is attached to, we always look at it as either damnation or we look at it as failure. And I tell people all the time, I don't have any failures. And I know somebody's probably going to say, wait a minute, she thinks she's perfect. No, I have teachable moments. The way I learned how to heal is I learned to look at those moments that I didn't meet the mark, those moments that I self-inflicted. I learned to look at those as teachable moments. What do I need to learn from this moment that's going to heal me? And when you change your perspective and start looking at things from this, I'm not beating up on myself no more. See, that fear comes because we beat up on ourselves. We have inflicted such a level of self-judgment on a lot of us. And that's why we have the fear, because we remember where we messed up. And so because we remember that 5 years ago when we tried it, we messed up, we still think in our mind we're going to mess up again. So why am I going to try this again? Because I messed up the first time. But if you change your perspective and look at it this way, maybe 5 years ago, you actually weren't ready and fully committed to the healing. So that's why it didn't work. So now I'm not down on myself that it didn't work. Now I realize I wasn't ready then. So now I'm looking at myself, not in a damnation way, but now I'm looking at myself of, okay, that just wasn't my season. But I can do it in this season. I'm different. 5 years ago, I was immature. 5 years ago, I didn't like myself. 5 years ago, I was faking it. But this year, I know who I am. I'm doing good. I got my focus. This year, I'm a different person. Who I am 5 years ago, I have to shift my perspective. And if you can shift your perspective, fear won't grip you as much. I'm not going to say it won't show up. It will show up because that's what it's supposed to do. But then when you shift your perspective, you be like, all right, you showed up, but it's okay. I got it this time. I know I ain't have it last time. I admit it. I ain't do it. I am the first one to admit to myself that I messed up. I'm the first one. You don't have to. And when I change my perspective and stop beating up Shavona, not Dr. Vaughn, not Pastor Vaughn, when I stopped beating up Shavona and started saying, you know what? That season, you wasn't ready because you wasn't over this. So you know what? Okay, let's change our perspective. I'm not struggling with that no more. Now I can do it. This is a new season. When you change your perception, fear won't consume you. It will show up, but it won't consume you.
Amen. You on Live with the Chop Shop. We're here with Dr. Vaughn. Dr. Vaughn, I want to talk about people. I was sharing with somebody, I've never been that person that gets the privilege of isolated space to heal. I just have too many responsibilities and things. And I believe that a part of my personality is that, you know, how my makeup, let me say, the way God has built me is to stand in the face of some things. So, how important is it that even in that you have the right circle? There are four voices that are allowed to speak in my life right now. Just four. That's Pastor Shelley and Antoine Burton, Overseer Della Holt, Pastor Michael Jerome Evans. That's it. Nobody else has speaking authority in my life in this space because of the vulnerability and because everybody ain't a voice to speak in a process like this. How important is it that we have a keen sense of who should be, shouldn't be, and having being in tune and focused on that group that you know contributes to that healing process, and not having everybody just willy nilly.
Well, it's definitely essential. It's just two-part answer to that. It's definitely essential to make sure the right people are around you. I always give this analogy. When you're in the recovery room, only those that are authorized and those that are sanctioned for the recovery room can come back in the recovery room. It's not the waiting room. So everybody can't come in the recovery room. And sometimes you got to look at your life at the same. When you're trying to recover, you kind of got to something, as they said, you know, he will use the natural. Sometimes you got to look at things in that way and realize that you're in a recovery space. So you need to keep only those certified individuals that can come in this space so that you're not infected, because your wound is open. While you're healing, your wound is open. If the wrong person comes in the atmosphere, it contaminates it. It infects it. And so you don't get infected, you have to be very, 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 very keen. I'm trying to tell you, I made the mistake and I had to recover from it. But you got to be very keen on who you keep when you're in that sensitive recovery and healing space trying to get the wholeness. Because they will actually God will give them some of the medicine you need in order for you to get through that place we call in between. But my second part to that is, you mentioned the word self-care. And what I'll say to you, and this is just being me, I just hear it clear, this is just being me. What I'll say to you is, I don't want you to look at self-care as saying, because of your responsibilities, you can't. Because there should be still some intentional time with the man. If you're going to maintain healing and wholeness, and that's to anybody listening to me, if you're going to maintain healing and wholeness, I have a lot of things at this point in time. I work full time. I'm an author of now 4 books, sir, not 2.
Excuse me.
But I got a mentoring program. I got an empowerment group of over 200 some women. I got ministry, all of that. But one thing I learned in this season of maintaining, because we talk about getting wholeness, but maintaining my wholeness, what I still have to give the woman time. What does that mean? I may not be able to give the woman a whole weekend, but one day you have to structure your schedule enough that one day out the week belongs to the man. And so I challenge you. I learned it on the other side. I challenge you to adapt it in the middle instead of waiting to the other side when you got to figure it out. I'm sharing it with you here. Find a day where you say, this is for the man. Yeah, I'll work in the morning or whatever, but I'm not doing no church work. I'm not doing nothing. I can cancel y'all tomorrow. Unless it's a life or death situation. Because what's essential is you got to maintain your stamina when you're going through this journey called healing and wholeness. Because it's a fight. It's a battle. It's a journey for real. And so you got to. So I challenge you and anybody that's listening, make time for the man or the woman. I don't care if it's only 4 hours on a Monday. If you get off, you shut down, the rest of the evening is yours or whatever. I actually have 2 days. Even with everything that I got going on, I take a couple hours on one day and a couple hours on another. And I put my phone on do not disturb. I don't answer any email. I don't even look at emails. I don't check my phone. Because that's my time for the woman to make sure she good. If you don't make sure you're good, who will?
Amen. You on live with the Chop Shop. We here with Dr. Vaughn. Dr. Vaughn, it's one last point that I wanted to raise with you as we're coming down the stretch. And that is how important I've seen the instructions of God in the healing process. When we normally talk about the instructions of God, we're talking about either the work or we're talking about the punitive aspect of being outside of God's will. But God's instructions to me through this healing process have been so precise and specific. And the slightest deviation completely setting you back at square one. How important is it that we are in tune to the voice of God and we're doing thus saith the Lord when it comes down to your healing process?
God is our surgeon. If your surgeon goes in to cut you and he cuts the wrong nerve, you're done. If he gives you specific instruction, think about it. I had back surgery. I always like to use analogies. I had back surgery. And one of the things they told me was you can't do this for the first 4 weeks. If you do this, you will damage what we fixed. It'd be good to me. You'll damage what we fixed. And then you will set yourself back and we'll have to go back in. I say the same thing to you. Anybody listening, when God is actually doing that surgical healing on you and he gives you specific, precise instructions, don't do this, move to the left, go to the right, sit still, be quiet, don't do this, move it. If you don't do those, you will end up damaging what he fixed and having him to go back and have to do it all over again. So we have to be very keen to the ear of God, to the instruction of God, because he's the one who knows the end result. So that's the one we should be trusting along the way. But many of us step out of it because what you say earlier, we feel good, so we think we could do something different. No, think about it. It was your thought that got you in. Okay, that's a whole nother conversation. But you have to realize just because you feel good don't mean that you are good. And so we have to follow the instructions, or once again, we'll damage what he already fixed.
Dr. Vaughn, we got to bring you back again, as Chelsea the Catwoman said. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. This is an ongoing conversation, y'all. The work of healing, I believe, is perpetual. I'm not in this process believing I'm going to get to a point where I don't have to continue to do this work, because God knows it's been a lifetime of damage, and there's some things that are even pre-generational for me. So I want to thank you for being with us tonight. Your book is definitely blessing my life. I got 3 more books I need to get if you didn't vote for. I got 3 more of them I need to get. But thank you so much for being with us. We're going to get you back on here. You're going to be one of those regular contributing voices, because again, being able to get to a place of wholeness is something that has to be the pursuit of all of us. I want to thank my other guest, Mr. Ray Kelly, for being with us tonight. Ray always makes sure that we're informed and that is done in a manner in which we get it, that we don't leave no stone unturned when it comes down to legislation, and it comes down to specifically around that area that he has done so much work in, which is police reform. I got to thank my right hand, my left hand, my main man, Mr. Shaka Pitts on the ones and twos. Shock, you always do what we do. We do what we do, but you always make it do what it do. And I want to just thank you, brother. And last but not least, I got to thank our listening and viewing audience. I always say if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound? Of course it made a sound. It just was nobody there. But you hear it. You show up. Y'all show out for us. Y'all get in the comments. Chelsea the Catwoman, Keita Brown, DD, Evangelist DD, Elder Ra, some of the folks that I seen on here tonight. Stephanie Pitts, you always with us. And I'm just so excited and so grateful that we get the privilege to be able to bring this to you. As always, I say in closing, trust God, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not to your own understanding, and all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Be the change that you want to be. There are a lot of people that they come up and they move on. Fix where you are, repair what you've broken, stand fast in the place, and allow God to show you that you're not just somebody that can move by inheritance, but you can actually be a builder. And above and beyond everything else, always remember that you can be more. Thank you for joining us, and we love you.